What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you're listening to Podcasting Business School. It's the show where I teach podcasters how to love their podcast like a hobby and build it like a business. Today, we got a podcast audit session going on. My Pod Pals, Kelly and Joanne from the Inside Design Podcast. Kelly, Joanne, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you.
All right. So it's always fun to have a double dip of podcast audit with two podcasters, co-hosts, and twice the ideas is what I've experienced in the past. So hold on tight. This is going to be a good one. And with these podcast audits, I always like to set a goal first. So let's say that we have a productive session today. I give you some amazing action steps. You implement those things. And then we're kind of re-meeting, 6 months from today. And let's paint that picture. So if things go really well for your show, for your brand, for your audience over the next 6 months, what could that potentially look like?
Well, I'll start because
Okay.
I think I know what you're going to say. So we are getting ready. It is currently July, almost July. So we are getting ready in August to send out our sponsorship invitations for the 2025 budget year. So if I was looking 6 months ahead, I would say I would really love to have 2025 sponsorships secured within that 6 months. We are 98% sponsored this year. We produce 52 episodes, but only 26 of those are our main show. So we sponsor those 26 are sponsored. And so yeah, I would really like to come out the chute successfully. Yeah, sponsored.
But the other part of that is fully sponsored sounds really great, but we aren't making a lot. We are covering our costs. Our costs are what per year?
28,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and we really want to stick with our producer and our sound. And we've got a great gig going with our creative director and all the social media and all the stuff that happens. But we work really hard to get those sponsorships. But at the end of the day, it isn't really that profitable. So monetizing that. And we've been doing this for 6 years. We didn't even seek sponsors for the first 2, maybe 3. Most people that we ask will do it. So that's all great. But I just have a couple. I think our podcast name, I know you talk a lot about that. Not sure if people are finding us because 6 years ago, there were a lot fewer interior design podcasts than there are now. When we look on Chartable, we're pretty far down. When you search interior design, we used to come up pretty quick. We're not coming up for a while. So I just think that we've got a great audience now, but I'm not quite sure that we have a lot of new people finding us.
Okay.
There you go. There's a load for you.
No, that's perfect. And I think it's super cool that you've been doing this for a while. You've seen some sponsorship success. And now it's kind of like, all right, how do we get to that next level where we're, 1.5 timesing our costs or doubling our costs and revenue so that we actually can pay for some things. And, maybe your podcast is paying your mortgage or taking you on vacations or buys you a brand new Porsche or something. Who knows? Like the pod, hashtag pod Porsche. That's what we're going for here. Okay. So obviously like growth is going to be important to this sponsorship equation. Who should be listening to your show? Who's the ideal avatar podcast listener for Inside Design?
Okay. Here's the other issue.
we know what our challenges are.
We have a very broad audience, and that consists of other interior designers, homeowners, vendors, manufacturers that we buy from, business people, creatives.
It's a big creative umbrella, which is why we called it Inside Design, because we talk about our business, interior design projects and that those intricacies, but we also talk about all things creative. So we talk a lot about travel and art and entrepreneurship within the creative field. And so it's a broad audience. So
whether that's good or bad, I don't know. Like sometimes we'll be recording an episode and in my mind, I'm thinking, those people they're not going to listen. They're not going to listen. They're not going to care. So,
but then another group will.
And if you go, because we are 200 episodes in, if you are looking for our podcast, and you find a topic, but it isn't like, oh, if I want to just hear all about interior design, then we
Not yeah.
are not the one.
Okay. Okay. I've got lots of ideas.
Okay.
Let's start unpacking these a
Okay.
little bit, one at a time, in no specific order. So I think let's just talk about the name first, because I've got a simple idea that I think is a quick fix. So when I
Okay.
searched the word design and I searched the word interior design on Apple Podcasts. That's kind of, I test. I'm like, okay, these are obvious words that are important to the brand and that we want to show up for. It was interesting when I searched the word design, a real variety of things popped up. You guys' show didn't pop up, but like a lot of like graphic design and like body design, and not,
Yeah.
it wasn't real interior design specific. So I really don't think that that's the main word we want to feature for our podcast searchability.
Mm-hmm.
But interior design is really important. And when I put that in, you obviously use that in other places in your brand and in your episode titles and things like that, because you still showed up in I think the 17th, you were the 17th show that popped up. Not great, but not terrible. It was a few swipes of the thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, like when you look at podcast searchability habits, if you get on that first or second screen, they're probably going to click on something before they get to number 17 is the
Mm-hmm.
problem.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way we solve that is just doing a title extension with the word interior design in there. And I think that'll
Mm-hmm.
boost your right. Because there was no shows that I could find. Actually, there was one show. There's one show called Interior Design. That's it. But that hasn't been active since 2020. And that was on an interior design magazine. So we don't even need to worry about that one. But there are no shows other than that one where interior design are the first two words of the name.
Really?
I got balloons going up there. Look at that. So
somebody's excited you just said that.
For those of you listening in, we all know what's happening with like Zoom and StreamYard. Like you do certain hand things and then like hearts pop up on the screen and balloons. For some reason, balloons just popped up. I haven't figured out what hand AI thing I did to make that happen. So that just happened. But yeah, so a couple things to consider with the name. A simple solution is just keep it called Inside Design, interior design conversations for or about, and then you name some of those other things that you talked about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
but with other keywords. I think the word creative or creatives is a great searchable term.
Mm-hmm.
I've had other people in the creative space use that, and it's done really well for them. But I think just adding interior design to a title extension will bump you back up into those first.
And where does that go exactly? Is
So
that in our profile, like on iTunes and Spotify, etc.?
So where you host it, like on,
Where we host it.
do you know like Libsyn, Buzzsprout? Do you know where you host
Libsyn,
it?
we have
Okay,
Libsyn.
perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I use also. So you go to the main podcast editing hub where you can change the name of the show, change the actual podcast art, like the logo for your show and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
On that, just interior, put on the same line as the title. Don't use the subtitle line.
Okay.
When it comes to what I call organic discoverability, what other people consider like SEO or searchability and things like that, the name of the show has the most importance, and the first word or first two words of the name have even more importance. That's why my show, Podcasting Business School, I show up for any search with the word podcasting in it. I'm usually one of the top two that show up, and it's a huge advantage. So people are searching podcasting tips. There I am. So you could just do interior design, inside design, interior design conversations for creatives, homeowners, and whatever, design professionals or whatever. Like we would come up with like an X, Y, and a Z of descriptive terms. Because when I name a show, when I'm consulting on a name, I've got 3 boxes. And if somebody's paying me, I make them like, I'm like, you're not getting away with me from me without having these 3 things. So the first one is when I read the name, I want to know exactly what it's about. And then the second one is when I read the name, I want to know exactly who it's for. And then the third one is I want to see at least 2 really strong keywords in there.
Okay.
So
is there a minimum or a maximum amount of letters,
I mean, you
spaces
don't want
can
to
have
be like a paragraph, but for a title extension, my little formula is big keyword, either tips or conversations or discussions for keyword, and keyword. So it would be like interior design conversations for homeowners, Y and Z, or creatives
Okay.
and
Okay. I
real
like
estate
that.
agents.
I like that.
So, but look for those keywords, and you have to really think about descriptive terms that your ideal listener or those different categories use to describe themselves. Because if they're searching interior design, now you're popped up on there. Like I saw one that was like interior design for angry people. I was like, all right. And it's got like two like biker looking dudes that are like big beards and tattoos. I was like, all right, whatever. But that's, if somebody is an angry person or they relate to those people, they're like, oh wow, like those are my people. So if you use the word creatives as something that, that's a word they go, oh, I'm a creative. That describes me. Or new homeowners, or any descriptive term that's gonna, because I think your interior design is gonna work the searchability magic. That's gonna pull the right people in.
Yeah.
And then you want them to look, and I want this to be on the art. I like your art. Okay. I like your art. And I like the thick text that you have across the top. I want something across the bottom with this subtitle. So it kind of sandwiches the frame. And at the bottom, I want what's called a shadow box. So it's like a rectangular shape, or you can go on Canva and just kind of play around or have your team work on it. But I want a solid background. So I don't want just the picture of you two as the background behind the words, because it can kind of get jumbled up in there.
Okay.
So I want like a little rectangle across the bottom, and I want it to be as readable as possible. And I want the words interior design to be in a different color than anything else on the screen on that art. Because I want it to pull out, and they see, ooh, this is interior design. Because we
won't like the way that looks. Just saying.
100%.
You're messing with designers' heads right now.
100%. Like it's going to be off brand or whatever. This is one of my my best, fishing for brand new listener tips that I've got, because the discoverability, the organic discoverability is a 2-leg relay race. The first leg of the race is you got the right word in there, or words. Interior design is you're in the game, but then all those images pop up, and now we're fighting for the click, because they're probably just going to click on one, maybe two, and then they're going to start listening. So we want to draw eyeballs. Now it's an eyeball game, and everybody's like, interior design, got some nice looking, people with cool backgrounds, and that's what they all look like. So we got to call out that right person and have something that lets them know this is interior design for creatives, blah, blah, blah. And that way they go, those are words that I use to describe myself. I'm in. They get the first click. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So, and play with that, have fun with it. And I think you'll step up to the challenge. And whenever I deal with creative people, artistic people, design-based people like yourselves, it's fun. It's fun to watch you go to work on stuff like this and go, okay, here's a challenge. And yeah, it's going to rub against the grain a little bit, but they always come back and go, okay, here's what we got. What do you think? I'm like, yes, so much better. So
the search is identifying not only your name and your
Title.
tagline or your subtitle, but it's also reading and searching through your badge, through your
tag,
there's nothing searching the graphic per se, but it's important just for the eyeballs at that point. Like the people are the AI searching for the right thing. It's like real life humans are scanning, going, what is my attention drawn to? You don't want to look like everybody else. And I would search interior design and just scroll through some of the other art and go, how can we use different colors or different text or something different? It's literally like fishing lures. Like, how are we the bright, shiny silver fishing lure in a lake full of blue worm lures or something like that? Like, how do we stand out? And I think you start playing that game and going, all right, how do we really pop compared to these ones? Or maybe, you can do some different stuff and go, okay, let's look at our logo. It's like this. Let's tilt it across the screen and just see, and just imagine that there. Will that pop out? Or just some different colors or anything? Just kind of play around with it and think about, how do we stand out at that point? And sometimes people get really wrapped up into like, oh man, this is really not in line with our branding and stuff like that. But like the podcast name, the podcast art, it isn't your brand. It doesn't have to be your brand. I know plenty of people that they think like the name of their book has to be the name of the show, or their name of their online course has to be the name of their show. And it's like, it doesn't have to be lined up like that. If it if it's hurting you from acquiring new listeners. I don't want your name or your art to be the number one reason why your ideal listeners aren't finding you. I want to be the number one reason why they are finding you. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Because you got a great show, 200 episodes. My God, like you're putting great content out there, cranking it out with very great consistency. So I want the right people to be able to find you. And then all of a sudden, like I have people do what we just talked about and they double the downloads in the first month. So when we get back to sponsorship conversations, like, okay, now we can talk pricing because we just doubled our downloads.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one way that we're going to elevate. And that's organic discoverability. That's just, it's so nice when your ideal listeners can just find you. You start getting those messages on social media or those emails going, I love your show. I just found it. Well, how did you find it? I searched interior design on Spotify. Mind blown. Like that was easy.
Yeah.
Instead of like paying for Facebook
Sometimes-
ads or something.
Sometimes it is. It's just so simple that
Yeah.
we make it so much harder.
Yeah. So that's one big piece of the puzzle. And then if you really want to look at an overhaul, you could shift interior design to the front. So it could be called the Interior Design Podcast, Conversations for blah, 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 blah. And that would give you more of that organic discoverability. But I would try the title extension first, because then it doesn't require any rebranding or anything.
Well, our names are in there too, which makes it a little longer. It's, Inside Design with Kandrak and Cole.
Yeah.
So that makes it kind of long.
And we did that because podcasting is really our second gig. It's our passion project. We are interior designers first and foremost, full-time, busy, all day long. And so we have a very established name in our industry. And so that was important.
Yeah.
But it does make it everything longer and
Yeah.
more to fit in the box. And
I mean, something to consider just with thinking about keywords and things like that. Like the verbiage of when you introduce the show, you don't need to add the title extension at all. Like I've got one, but I just go like, you heard me do my intro, podcasting business school. That's it. And then I didn't say the blah, 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 blah tips for all these people.
yeah, we don't
so
either.
I don't need to worry about that. But like in the name, I would consider taking your names out of the actual like title line, but still in the audio and everything else in the art, you can still have it on there, just because the sooner we can have the phrase interior design on that name, the more to the front, the more powerful it's going to be. So something to consider. I think that would help, not hurt. But that way you can still have your names all over the branding of the art, the audio of the show and everywhere else. So something to consider. And on the art, it'll list you as the author right below the art everywhere it's listed anyway. So it'll say Kandrak and Cole there as well. So it's gonna be very visible. So not like, I mean, it's an optimization thing, not a this is 100% necessary sort of thing. I think 100% necessary, get interior design in the name in some form. We're going to be way better off.
Okay.
All right. Now, another area of sponsorship or like what I like to call it brand immersion partnership is looking at your email list. So are we building an email list? Do we have subscribers? Do we have lead magnets? Like what's that situation look like?
We have, I think, 2,500 on our email list.
Good.
We send out a newsletter every other Friday, introducing and giving the information about the show. Listen to it here, watch it here with the links, and then we have a little like a before and after. It's kind of more, it's like a little.
We kind of turned it into a blog for SEO reasons.
Yeah.
And so it's more meaty than just an announcement of the show. The show is the primary first thing you read, but then and then we feature the sponsor, and then we show a before and after project because people love those. And then it might be something else that we're doing. We're speaking somewhere, or we just went to Guatemala to do charity work. So it'll be something else. So it's very newsy and meaty.
Good.
With lots of links and all that.
And I'm glad that you're using that with sponsors. I think that's when you look at sponsorships or brand immersion partnerships, I really like using the phrase brand immersion partnerships via podcast sponsor, because when you talk to companies, they get into the CPM model with podcast sponsorship where they're like, we'll pay you between $18 and $25 for every 1,000 downloads you do. And then we really get kind of screwed on that. But you go, oh, it's not just a podcast sponsorship, it's a brand immersion partnership. So you're getting access to our podcast audio. you're getting access to our blog, to our newsletter, and to our social media feed. And all of a sudden, that's across the whole brand. That's where brand immersion comes from, and we break loose of that CPM. We can essentially charge whatever we want. Like I've got
Yeah,
a
I like
client.
that verbiage so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would start packaging things together and go, we've got X amount of social media followers. We've got X amount of email list subscribers, blog subscribers, and you're going to get access across all of these with X amount of ads on the show, newsletter features, you know, Instagram, Pinterest posts, features, you know, whatever you want to add in there. The more you add in there, the higher value it is. You could do a live
Right.
stream with them. You could,
Yeah.
you know, bring them on for a little 5-minute mini episode or anything. And all of a sudden value goes up and up and up. So you really want to look at continue to build those the email list, the social media following. And with your email list, I think there's some opportunities since you have these different legs of your brand, different types of people. What if you were to do some sort, and you have so much experience in the industry?
Yeah.
If we leverage all that, put it up in a mixing pot, and then every quarter or twice a year, you do some sort of a free challenge for one of those focus groups. So like in our new homeowner interior design challenge, or our interior design professional, 7-day challenge, where you're collecting email addresses for their ability to participate in that free challenge. And now you're building your list, and you kind of get to engage with those people and teach them a little bit based off of what you know. I think that's an easy way for you to really supercharge that email list growth and really build super fans at the same time as you're getting hands-on and getting to work with them, get to see them, doing Zoom chats or inside a Facebook group or something like that. But then all of a sudden your list is 5,000 or 8,000, and you bring that to sponsors. They're like, whoa, like, okay, I've got a client that's got a newer show, but he's got 25,000 people on his email list, and he's getting paid sponsorships. So, so that's a big deal. Sponsors like seeing that email list. So any thoughts or ideas there?
I think for us, it's all comes down to time, because we are so busy. And so, and we travel a lot. And so it's just, I think it's a great idea. I think we'd have to be efficient with it,
Yeah.
and really kind of figure out, how we craft that. But I think people are very hungry for our knowledge. We've been in business for 19 years. We've been around the block. We know a lot, and they're hungry for mentorship, especially. So
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think, like, if we're going to really simplify it, let me give you a real simple framework that's worked for me. And we'd go, okay, let's do a 3-day challenge, and once per quarter. So every 90 days, we're going to do a 3-day challenge, but it's going to be very simple. And let's say you're going to talk to aspiring interior design professionals or current interior design professionals, and they want some mentorship from you. You're going to come up with 3 pain points that you know that they have, and you're going to teach. So day one, you go live in a Facebook group or something, or even just on like Zoom or whatever, and you teach them that pain point and give them an assignment to do. If you're in a Facebook group, you can go post your assignment inside the group. Everybody's going to give you feedback. Then day 2, teach on pain point 2, give them an assignment. Day 3, teach on pain point 3, give them an assignment. Challenge done. You just knocked over 3 dominoes and pushed them into some momentum. And 3-day challenge, they're getting direct engagement from you, feedback from the community, and then challenge complete. And it's super simple. And when you teach, it could be 30 minutes of just going live, or 45 minutes, 3 days. It doesn't have to be once per quarter. It could be twice a year. Or you just put one out there in the distant near future and go, okay, we're going to try this 4th quarter of the year. We're just going to try one and see what happens.
We got to come up with something.
Yeah.
It'll be fun for you all.
So they would need to submit their email address for
Correct.
participation in that.
Correct. And you talk about it on the show, mention it on your email,
Yeah.
Your newsletter a little bit, promo it out. And then all of a sudden you have people signing up, and you may have listeners that aren't on your email list. And it's like, okay, now we're converting them over, and we're grabbing them and getting them plugged in. And I think, again, the super fan factor is not to be like overlooked. When you have those casual, passive listeners, then all of a
Mhm.
sudden they get access to you. And this is one of the real superpowers of podcasters, of independent podcasters. Like, we aren't big, fancy, famous with these giant teams that do all of our bidding. Like, we can actually interact with these people, and
Yeah.
they've
We
listened to 200 episodes. They're going to freak out when they get to actually interact with you, you know?
We've actually been stopped on the street
many times.
in High Point, which is really
Literally
funny.
many times. And we're
See?
like,
Are we famous?
are we
Yeah.
famous? Like,
Yeah.
why is she gawking at us?
Yeah.
You know, Kendrak and Cole, we're like, literally, we're normal people. Like, they're like, no. And we're like, yeah, we really are. But if you want to think we're like, okay. Yeah.
Will you sign my forehead? Will
Yeah. Yeah. So there is definitely a super fan factor out there that we don't tap into because I don't know, just
We're busy.
well,
Yeah.
we're humble too. I
Yeah.
don't know. I just
Well, I
but
think
we could do
that
that.
your audience, here's another thing to consider. Like, if you're experiencing those sorts of things already, let's say you do, like, I would just put something out there for the fourth quarter, not in the holiday season, like pre-holiday season.
Mhm.
And we're gonna do a 3-day thing, and you promote it and tell your audience to grab a friend, because it seems like interior design professionals, especially, they know other interior design professionals, and they're
Yeah.
in networking groups and
Yeah.
mentorship groups. Grab a friend. So all of a sudden you got all these listeners that it turns from 100 people in the challenge to 200 because they just went and grabbed a friend to come with them. And now you've got, you know, a larger group, and you've got 100 new people to be downloading. And that's going to turn into thousands of downloads. They start binge listening your content. All of a sudden, wow, our downloads really spiked after that challenge because we've got all these new listeners that are just getting after our 200 plus episodes. So
Yeah.
that's very doable, very possible. It takes a little bit of organization, but the good thing is there's two of you, and you know, you can both kind of tag team it and put it out there. I think it'll be successful.
I think it would be good because we've toyed a lot with mentoring and coaching, and every time we really try and sit down and dive in, we're like, oh God, too overwhelming, forget it. Because we have had so many young creatives reach out to us that are hungry for us as mamas, and we haven't. I think we're probably overthinking it. We're probably thinking we need to create this whole big program that's full of modules and all this stuff, and then we're like, nah.
Yeah, and just do a freebie. See, kind of, it's a great way to test it, and you see how much effort it takes you. See what the response is. I guarantee you a lot of people want to throw money at you after it's done. How do we hire you? So just be ready for that, and that way it could spark an idea, and maybe you get a group of these people that are asking to hire you, and you go, hey, let's have a conversation about what that would look like. What would you want? What would you be willing to pay?
Yeah.
And then you find that cross section of like, ooh, I like getting paid that amount for this amount of work, and let's see what happens. So that's a good little baby step.
Yeah.
You know?
I like the baby steps. Yeah.
All right.
That's
I want to
it.
make sure that we get a shout out your website, your brand. If people want to get a little bit more Kendrak and Cole, Kelly and Joanne, interior design, where do they need to go?
The website is kendrak-cole.com. We're Kendrak Cole on Instagram.
And you spell it KANDRACKOLE. So I'm Cole with a K.
Yeah. And the podcast name is Inside Design with Kendrak and Cole.
All right.
What else we got? What else we got?
We're all over.
Yeah.
We're all over it. So our website, really, you can reach us for anything. But we're very active on Instagram, and you can catch us on YouTube or wherever you find podcasts.
Outstanding. All right.
Yeah.
Go and support them, Pod Pals. And with that, everybody, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you all. If you guys want to do a podcast audit just like Kelly and Joanne, head on over to the website, podcastingbusiness.school. Click on the freebie button and we'll get you set up. So with that, I'm going to send you out in the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you, Adam.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome.